but I just hated that the fact they lied, or just be honest.
You haven't really ever had it any other way, so I just wonder.
No, that's all I've known. I just never forget. He's at the centre bounce because he's take my jumper off, mate.
Do both your knees, 17 and 18.
But then the second time, that's when you start really questioning, like, oh my God, am I done?
2015 grand final.
That year was a tough year for me, obviously.
How do you look back on your career? Okay, ladies and gentlemen, here we are, BackChat powered by Paywise for season 2025. This man has been elusive, to say the least, but we've found him. We've got him in here. Nic Naitanui joins us on BackChat. Hello, mate. How are you?
Hey, guys. Good, thanks. Thanks for seeing you finally in the flesh. It's been how long's it been?
Wow. Mate, we've been doing BackChat for 3 years. I reckon I've messaged you every week for 3 years. Hey, mate, you coming in? Anyway, I think anyway.
I saw him at the Wildcats once. Said, mate, when are you coming here? When are you going to ask? When are you asking? pretty sure we've been asking.
Well, look, I know you might, I don't know if you're a BackChat fan, but we ask the same question to every guest.
Yeah.
All right, it's the first question. And I don't know what realm you're going to go with this, but we want to know your greatest sporting achievement, thanks to TABtouch, not on the football field. We know you're an All-Australian ruckman multiple times.
Yeah.
Best and fairest player, marks of the year, goals of the year, after the siren, jumping over heads. Mate, you're even...
High five in the crowd.
Yeah, we've seen it all, right? We've seen it all. We know you're a great footballer. We were. We want to know your greatest sporting achievement, not on the AFL field.
Yeah, I actually had to think about this. It's sad because it's along the same sort of lines as what I do for the AFL, but it is jumping. But I actually broke the state high jump record here in WA as a 16-year-old.
Did you?
And it was held by the great Andrew Vlahoff. The Vlahoff family are
really the basketball.
Yeah, they're a real athletic family. I didn't know anything about that until these records came about, and I reckon they held all the jumping, like high jump, triple jump, long jumps. Like I don't know how many are in their family. I think male and female, but they used to have all these records, and it was at Perry Lakes before that got bowled over and became all housing now.
What did you jump?
It was over 2 meters. I don't know the exact thing. I think someone might have broken it by now, but I might go back and have a look and find that exact thing. So, I'm not lying. But I actually, the one reason I remember it is because I scissored it. So
I was going to ask.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
You scissored over 2 meters.
Yeah. So the whole thing, the whole stand came down. I remember there's a few footballers that were there. Adam Cocky was one that I remember who played at Subiaco and played at West Coast, obviously. He was standing right there as I did it. And, he was looking at me like I was crazy because I don't think they'd seen anyone scissor that high. They thought they were going to go to the old Frosby flop. But
so 16, this was when you had like the,
short mushroom dreadlocks that I'm out here. So, but I got offered a contract. There was an American guy there who was like almost like your football scout, but he was from a college crew in America, and offered me a scholarship to a college over there in the US to go and do high jump. And I was like, how boring. I'm not going to go there and sit at school just to go jump over a stick forever.
So you didn't consider it?
I did a little bit, but I was just like, football was just drawing me too much toward it. So
because like you love your American sports, and so
I was hoping it was a college basketball contract. I thought that's what he was, but he was a high jump, which I don't know. Knowing my genetics, the Fijian stuff, I don't reckon I'd fit over that. He'd be knocking that pole over every single time I try to jump over it later in life.
I like that. So state champion, very good.
That's good. Yeah.
Let's take you back to the start, mate, and we may as well start with a bit of a elephant in the room. You're a New South Welshman.
Yeah,
is that correct?
Yeah, I was born in Western Sydney, so Penrith. So no one would know that. So.
I didn't know that either.
Didn't you? Yeah, so I was born over there, Nepean Hospital. Yeah, there you go. So, and then moved across to Perth at probably about 2.5 years old. So, I'll go for New South Wales when the Origin's on.
Do you?
Yeah.
Well, that's fair. You're from New South Wales.
What's your upbringing like, mate?
So Fijian family, obviously. Both parents. My old man was Fijian, so he passed away when I was young. So that was sort of the reason behind my mum's brother moving to Perth and us following along and sort of coming over here, and just that family connection. So stayed in Sydney for maybe half a year or so, and then came to Perth, and of all places, my uncle at the time, who we went to go and live with over here, chose Midland. So, it was I don't know. When you compare it to different places, it's crazy, but when you compare it to, I guess, where we were, or even Fiji, it's probably all pretty similar, or if not, it's better. So, came across to there, and then, spent pretty much most of my childhood and upbringing, around that sort of way, Midland, Midvale.
This isn't Uncle Vulcan, is it?
No, it's not. No, but he's an uncle of mine.
Is he your uncle or are you
He
just
is.
making
He
that
is
up?
Uncle John. Yeah, he's got a gym over in Sydney. Yeah. So,
Love Vulcan.
yeah, good old gladiators. But
My wife had a crush on him when she was young.
really?
Yeah.
So she,
on Vulcan.
so she's sort of like me then? Or? Dreadlocks? I don't know. One of my sort of most fond memories was pre-primary. I went to High Wycombe. I went to kindergarten there. And I think pre-primary as well. And we're in between moving houses, and we shifted houses 100 million times here in Perth. But I remember Uncle John came and picked us up from school, and the whole school like shut down. Like I'm talking teachers, principals. I remember this lady, Mrs. Valalonga. I'll never forget her name. She was going nuts, and I was like, "Wow!" But I didn't realize how big. Like I think the only two big shows at the time were Gladiators,
Yes.
and then the biggest other dog was Mike Whitney and Who Dares Wins.
Oh, yeah.
So I reckon those two shows were like, everyone had to watch free-to-air TV back then.
Yeah.
So they were like the biggest, other than Home and Away and Neighbours. So he was a proper rock star. So him picking me up from school, my brother and I had about 5, 6 friends. We had year 7s wanting to be our friends by Monday next week. So yeah, Vulcan,
So
but no,
good.
different uncle.
So you
Vulcan's not living in Midland, mate. I'll tell you that. He wasn't living there.
So, mate, you're a twin.
Yep. Yep.
So tell us about growing up with a brother.
Yeah, twin brother. I guess it's the greatest thing because you've always got a friend or someone to play with from when you're born all the way through. So the only downside is you share everything. So every birthday, someone will just buy you one thing, and you half it with your brother. Your cake is one cake. You half that with him or whatever. Or you might get the same T-shirt, but one gets a red one gets a blue one. So I used to really get. I sort of started resenting birthdays because I was just like, it's not your day.
Yeah.
But it's good. We went in our different paths. Obviously, we played a lot of sport and did a lot of stuff together growing up. But when we got to that sort of teenage era, I started really focusing on football, and he's just worked. So he's been plumbing for about 15 to 20 years now.
Yeah.
He loves football. He's an Adelaide Crow supporter. He's mad.
What?
Yeah, I know. He liked McLeod. Like I think the Birdman's his favourite of all time.
Brett Burton.
Yeah, he used to sit. We used to play King of the Pack. Or what do you Victorians call it?
Marks up.
Marcus up. Yeah, that thing.
Jack's Pack.
Jack's Pack. So
Jack in the Pack.
we used to always play that, and I'd always be. I used to love Winnie Abraham, so I used to think I was Winston Abraham, even though I'm probably 10 times his size. So I used to always do that, and he used to always think he's Brett Burton jumping on shoulders, and I think because the Birdman could hang for so long, that was why he went for Adelaide.
So could he take a big hanger? Like
He
back
could,
in the day?
yeah, he could, yeah. So I don't know why he played basketball, but he never really and rugby, but then just never took up footy. He just
Why do you think?
didn't
Is
like
it like different mindsets? He's not as competitive as you, or
I think so. I think when push came to shove, he just didn't want to do it. Didn't really like the big crowds of people watching on the weekend and stuff. And
yeah.
But you look at the guys like the King brothers and all these other twins that go out there and do it. You're like, that could have been us, maybe.
Does he look like you?
Nah, he's a lot shorter. I guess when you start doing different professions, you start looking different too. But
Yeah.
Short hair, shorter than me. Yeah,
Right. So
we look pretty similar from like primary school sort of era, and then
people aren't going like, is that Nic Naitanui? Like, you look
Nah.
nothing. Okay.
nah. But the surname's there, so people sort of
Yeah.
they know straight away.
At what time do you move into the? I guess like famous, but people like talking about the Bushby Straight in
Yeah.
Midland. Like when do you move in there? And
So that was late sort of primary school sort of years. So Bushby Street and
so this is the Walters and the Yarrans.
right next door to each other. Yeah, so
you guys are actually. Like, it's not just this furphy that you guys were.
proper neighbours. Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually shot a thing with the AFL years ago where we all went back to our street and showed our old houses and all that sort of stuff. Pretty rough looking street. Or I think it does look like that now, but it always sort of has been. But we all live together, like literally next door to each other. And I always say I'm the worst advocate for Auskick footy because we never went to like footy training because we literally just put our rubbish bins on the road and the green bin and yellow bin were the goals, that sort of thing. And all like you can imagine all their cousins and like that sort of thing, brothers and that as well, are like stars. Like especially when they're a bit older, they're probably better than most AFL players because they just have that natural talent.
Yeah.
So I learnt the game of football through those guys at home, and you just be dodging cars, dodging bins. Like there'll be a punch on, there'll be fights, there'll be everything.
You're just like tackling on the bitumen and stuff.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. So and I sometimes look at it because I'd cop it a fair bit throughout my career around. You don't play like a big man at times. You're not taking a million marks like like a Max Gorn or doing those type of things, or Coxie does that. So I always used to cop it because I'd play like a small at times, and obviously playing alongside you would have seen it firsthand. But that's because I think purely I learnt to play the game the way, a Lewis Jetta played the game, the way a Michael Walters, the way which sometimes looks a bit leery, but it's probably You
just happen to be tall, right?
I was just a tall version of them. Which I was like, if I was built like Cyril Rioli, people would be going, wow, it's amazing. You know what I mean? Look at those 10 touches. But because I'm not, it's like, oh, what are you doing wrong? So I used to get so frustrated with it, but I don't know, everyone learns the game differently and everyone has their own little spin on it.
So you guys ended up at Swan Districts?
Yep. So I was actually quite lucky because Midvale Junior Footy Club, we all played basketball on like a Friday night, and then Sunday mornings was our Midvale Footy Club. So there was a fair chunk of us, that all played there. So guys like Davey Allard who played at Carlton, Jeff Garlett, we all played junior football in the same under 10s all the way through to under 17s, whatever. But then we all went to Swan Districts, and that's sort of where I reckon the whole group of us. So from our Colts team, I reckon we went on to win the grand final that year. There would probably be 12 to 14 guys from that team get picked up.
That's crazy.
A lot of first rounders and things like that too. So like guys like Tony Knott, we had Alex Rance at fullback, both Lewis and Neville Jetta on the wings. Like at my feet, I reckon I had Chris Yaron, Jeff Garlett, and
Shane,
Dave Allard. Yeah, he's around. Yeah, he was next door to me as well. So yeah, he played as well. But there's some names that played AFL too, like Todd Banfield, played up at Brisbane. Clancy Pearce played for numerous years at Freo. Like we had some stars at the time. You didn't really notice it or understand. Like Nathan Broad, and that's around a couple of years younger. Like all around playing the same sort of league footy, and yeah, I think that helped because we all went to school together as well. So Rancy and Davey Allard were separated by a fence. They were at the fancy school Guildford Grammar next door, but the rest of us commoners were at the Governor Stirling, the prison next door. So it's funny. We used to I don't know what it was, but they used to have their blazers and stuff, and we used to throw rocks and bricks and stuff. I think you just get just entrenched in this mentality that these little rich kids getting dropped off in the Mercedes Benz and that. And some of them are my teammates. I'm like, but I didn't care. I was like, stuff them. You're one of them. But then at 4:30, you'd go to Swan Districts and you'd all train together like your best mates. So, but yeah, we were all there in that little area. School footy, we all played school footy together. So, and then went to play at Colts level. And I think that helped us sort of stay on the straight and narrow as well, where most guys our age are out partying every single weekend. We could do it here and there, but most of the time we'd have a game on a Saturday morning with Swan. So I think it was a lot easier when you got sort of power in numbers of everyone doing the same thing.
Do you reckon did you have a coach that you think back he was really great, or she? Or...
It's funny because I still go on the West Coast, and that team, that Colts team on the board, there's a big plaque of it, and our coach, and he works at West Coast, and he's pretty humble about it, but he didn't have to do anything, to be honest. Chad Morrison.
Is that
Chaddy
right?
Morrison was our coach, so he'd come across. He'd obviously spent time Collingwood and West Coast, but yeah, he had a connection through, I think, Brian Dawson, someone down there, and he was our coach. And I'm talking to him now. He's like, Nick, when you put those names on a board, you don't have to do anything. You literally don't have to do anything.
Boys, get your positions.
Just go win. Yeah. So Alex Rance, for instance, he did nothing because the ball was never down there. And he goes on to be one of the best,
greatest of all time.
Yeah, defenders ever. So it's and he retires early. So you're it's yeah, you don't know what you had until you look back and really, reminisce on it.
So fair bit of hype started at 16, 17. You're playing for WA. You were one of the best players in the comp in the 18s. Best ruckman there. I think back to that time. I was at West Coast. I think you were drafted 2 years after me, maybe.
Yeah.
So this hype starts building up, and I'm playing the WAFL, of course, because I'm an absolute pleb. and it's like this, Nic Naitanui, give me pick one. Nick with the AIS had come to the club and spent a bit of time with West Coast, and then I reckon a little bit later on in the year Peel Thunder, my team, played Swan Districts. And I think was it your debut senior game?
I reckon it might have been, yeah.
But it was like one of these ones where like 16 years old, all this hype. He's as tall as he is now, but a little bit skinnier. little bit skinnier. And I'm at full back. And I just remember this like Fijian kid, like absolute unit. And I'm just thinking, this kid's 16, holy shit, like how am I going to beat him? Like most people, I was like, I'm going to bash him.
Everyone started doing it.
So I started. Can you remember this? Can you remember this? It was a night game. I remember it.
Yeah, I remember for sure.
What were you thinking?
No, I was just thinking, this is just what these idiots. I don't know. I was just like, I had the same mentality. I'm like, yes, they're a senior player, they're playing, but I was like, oh, he's at West Coast, so he probably thinks he's stronger and tougher than what they are. Like, but. It was almost like you get that sort of direction from your coaches to go and beat this person up. Like I think of that now when, if Harley Reid's coming into the comp or someone, if you had a chance of playing him, you're probably going to try and beat him up because you're like, I'm not letting this kid embarrass me or do this. So like,
you would have done that as a ruckman, wouldn't you? Like
I did,
as you're older.
100%. As an older
against
ruckman,
a young ruckman.
Yeah, because they used to do it to me. Like Brendan Lade and Dean Brogan used to bully me as a youngster. I still reckon those two used to always just go, let's have a go at him. And Aaron Sanders didn't care that you were only, tiny.
Yes.
I reckon that's important to have it. But what I found was really helpful being at Swans was that alignment. You had a lot of old guys, like you had it at Peel. Like you'd have guys in their 30s. You have actual men around you who could actually protect you. And when boys were able to go and play at their WAFL clubs, and it probably translated to when I got drafted to West Coast, there was that banter in the locker rooms, like, I got Scully this week, like we're playing them, like in the WAFL, or I'm versus Lewis Stevenson, the Claremont boys.
It was good. I liked that system.
Yeah. I loved it. Like you got to, like every corner of the room had their own little gang of guys who were from their WAFL clubs.
Yeah.
Even though you're all West Coast teammates, and you'd have one or two Freo players in your team as well, so you'd get to know them as well. And I actually enjoyed it because I think, especially for guys coming from over east, it was a bit of a social thing too. Like you'd get to go to a WAFL event, or some of the boys played for, Claremont. They'd have an event on one night, so you'd actually go along to that. So I enjoyed that setup. It's a lot different now, and obviously for certain reasons that clubs align and make their own teams. But they were the days. They were fun days.
I was watching some highlights, excuse me, of your first West Coast game, and they were freeze framing like when you were jumping and tapping the ball, and they were just like, how could anyone beat him in the jump? Did you feel that at the time, like even in your Swans days, like I can just jump over anyone in the ruck? Like it must. Yeah. Did it seem easy?
In ways, I always had that confidence and knew that. But I think the biggest thing is after a year or so of doing what you do, people start to figure you out and know what you do. So I had guys that could, cross the line, like, and the rules were a little bit different then as well. So people would really put the homework into, all right, all he can do is jump, so let's just cross the line and do this. So like Mark Jamar, for instance, I still get angry at Coxie actually. Coxie used to catch up with Jamar and watch his tape with him. I'm like, mate, he's at opposition and he's doing things to me that I don't like.
What do you mean Coxie used
to catch up with Jamar? Sorry, Coxie, watching this.
So Mark Jamar playing for Melbourne.
Played for Melbourne Demons, yeah. And I was just like...
What, just because he was his mate?
I don't know. I think people just help out other players. Like, no, I think he was asked by someone. I don't know. We'd have to follow up and ask him. But
that's right.
I remember saying to Coxie, I was like, why are you helping Jamar? He's a nice fella, but I'm like, he's not one of us. But yeah, so people would implement tricks to try and stop that jump, and it took time. I used to spend a lot of time with the late Phil Walsh a fair bit. In saying that, he'd take me, I don't think I told too many people, he'd take me later in my career to Adelaide. I'd go a day or two before the team, and he'd take me to Glenelg, and I'd go down and catch up with who'd I catch up with? Brendan Lade. So I'd go to Brendan Lade's house, and I'd watch tape with him.
Is that right?
Yeah. So it'd always coincide before Lady, and that would fly out for Port Adelaide to go and play elsewhere. We'd normally be playing Adelaide that week. And
so Phil had the relationship through Port Adelaide?
Yeah, he had the relationship. So he used to take me a day or two before. Yeah, which, I don't know, sometimes the team didn't even realise I was gone a day earlier, which I think it's kind of sad. I'm like, no one was even looking for me or wondering where I was. But I'd go with Walshy and then go and go and sit with him, and he'd watch my tape. So maybe that's the same as what Jamar was getting from
some sort of secret society with ruckmen.
Yeah, what's going on?
All just talking to each other and teaching each other's tricks.
Bunch of ruckwits, they call them.
Ruckwits, that's good.
We'll get into Riley O'Brien in a little bit. But pick one, 2008. Do you think you were Do you think you're going to go pick one? Like, what was the story there? Like, did you?
Yeah,
did you
I
think
told
you were
this
going to
story a
Melbourne?
few times. I genuinely did, and not because of the fact it was number one or whatever, but I met with Melbourne many times, and my manager at the time, Paul Connors, like he had every club's got their sort of recruiter manager guy, and Turnbull, what was his name? Johnny Turnbull, I think his name is.
Ronnie Johnny
Yeah,
Turnbull.
yeah. He was involved with Melbourne, so he was their sort of recruitment manager as well.
Yeah.
But I'd caught up with Melbourne many times beforehand, and the coaches and that. They even came and saw me. I was sharing a room with Daniel Rich at a hotel for the draft as well. So I actually caught up with Melbourne the day before the draft about getting picked up by them, and yeah. So I was like,
And what they said, like, we're probably taking you, or they were like,
no,
oh,
we are taking you. Not that we're taking you. So I was like, I was happy, but I was half emotional because I was like, I had my family here, my mum, my brother, and that, and I was a bit like, I'm gonna have to leave home. Like, this is a whole new world. Like moving to Melbourne.
So this is the day before the draft. They tell you they're taking you.
Yeah.
So what do you think? What do you think changed?
Well, I don't know. I woke up in the morning and I had breakfast with Daniel and his mum and dad, and I remember, I think it was Heather, his mum, opened up the paper and she was just like handed over and was like, Nick, there's a photo of like the media, like it must have been, the Age or something, had taken a photo of that morning. Like literally, they must have printed it. Oh no, it was that night, the night before, late at night. They were at the front of Watsy's house. There was a photo of the coach, the president, and Watsy talking at his house. Like, and I'm like, oh my God, like what is happening? Are they just telling everyone this or what's going on? And then, they read out the name and they read out pick one, Jack Watts, and I'm thinking, oh my God. Because I looked at who had picks and I was like, Port, Brisbane, Freo, West Coast. There was like, and Daniel Rich at the time, as you know, Richie had won 2 flags here at Subiaco. He trained in the AIS with me at West Coast as well. So he had a real strong bond with West Coast. So I thought, the smart pick for West Coast would be to take Richie because, he was the young star. Like he'd won 2 flags before he was 18.
Pick 2?
Yeah, pick 2. So I was like, I was doing the math in my head going, Richie's going to West Coast, so I could be going to Brisbane or Port or something. And I'm like, where am I going to be living? What has Melbourne done? So when I heard my name get called out, I just gave the biggest fist pump. I was so happy. I gave Woosh the biggest hug in my whole life. And he thought like I wasn't even a West Coast fan. I was the Collingwood fan growing up. I was like, yeah, I was.
Gross.
Prestige Como. But I was just so happy because I was like, I get to stay home, and I was just, no, there were so many emotions and then I hated Melbourne from then on. I was like, not you supporters of the club, but I just hated that the fact they lied, or just be honest.
And you wanted to prove it, like you every time you played them, like
yeah. So when Brendan Lade chased Cale Morton, I was like, I loved it. I was like, I used to love those clips going, just do whatever you can. But I did feel for him, but I did see it and go, if I did go to Melbourne, I probably would have come home pretty soon because they had a pretty rough trot, and poor Watsy, he was a sort of victim of all that, and I was close to him because we're the same manager. And
he's a good man, Jack.
Great man. We went to Watsy's house after the draft. Like they had the draft party. It's hard because he was a year younger than myself, and I named 12 of those guys that all got drafted from WA from my WAFL team all together. So we were all drinking and whatever, partying at his house, but they were all in year 12 at school still, so they weren't drinking. So we all got kicked out. We weren't allowed to stay there. Had to go to Tom Lynch's house. Like it was wild. I was like, we were all these older kids, but then this young kid got drafted number 1 over all of us. I was like, bit of a slap in the face, but he's still at high school and doing year 12 exams. But it's all history now.
So you go from getting drafted to Melbourne night before the draft. You're like, okay, my life's going to be that. And then, in the space of 10 minutes, Jack Watts gets picked up. You get picked up by West Coast. They give you the number 9. Yeah. You stay in your
I didn't get the number 9. There was a story behind that. So obviously when you go to the draft, you're in Melbourne, whatever.
Yes.
And you know how it works when the local boys are in the town already. They can go to the club. So it normally takes a day or 2 to get back from Melbourne.
Yep.
But if you're a Perth boy and you get drafted to West Coast, you're already in there that same day you get drafted.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you were there at the time in the rooms, but I came back and Woosha told me he wanted me to wear number 9, and number 9 was gone. So Guy Mansell, our old property steward, had given it to a young boy who'd asked for it and had it for a day or 2.
Who?
Swifty. So Tom Swift had number 9 for the first couple of days.
No,
and it wasn't until Steve Woodhouse at the time and Woosha and that came back and were like, hey, you need to relinquish that. You can have number 12.
What was that? I can't remember.
And then, yeah, you can have this. But realistically, it should go normally the first pick in that draft.
Oh, yeah.
But Swifty's just rolled in and
Swifty's
goes,
taking it 9. And if it was anyone, it was going to be Swifty. He had the confidence to do that. And he was a star player too. He was probably one of the best in the country at that time as well.
Yeah.
And so he had number 9 first. So I didn't have 9. I probably would have been wearing number 12. So, but that got changed within 2 days. Yeah.
Did he have to hand it to you? Was there some sort of ceremonial here, this is yours now?
No,
he presents you with the guarantee.
I'd love to go and ask him that, but I think Guy Mansell would have had to politely tap him on the shoulder and say, "Give it back, Tom."
So, it's a very it's a sliding doors moment, really. Like Melbourne, interstate, whatever to hometown. You're a Collingwood fan, but you probably if you
I was West Coast,
and you're in the number 9. It's a famous number at the club. It's a very much a it
was wild.
Your whole life's changed.
Yeah, I just remember weeks, as you said, the AIS time when I was training at West Coast, I had a cutout on my fridge of Cuzzy was the one I was doing kick to kick with. He pulled me aside and was kicking the footy with me.
Is that right?
And I got a photo of it, and I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. And then a year or two later, you're getting to wear his jersey, and I'm like, this is cool, but it's scary. A lot of weight comes with that number. There's obviously a lot of drama leading into that number being free. So it was wild. But then as you said, my first game was against Richmond, which was against Cuzzy, and it was Cuzzy's first game back against West Coast.
Right.
So that was weird in itself. Again, I'm like, and I just never forget. He's at the centre bounce. Cuzzy's like, take my jumper off, mate. He said that to me, and that killed me. I was like, oh.
Did he say it with a smirk, or did he say it
I didn't know. I think I was just so overwhelmed by the whole occasion because it was a 7 o'clock start at Telstra Dome, which I'd already been building it up all day in the hotel room, shitting myself. And then you got one of the legends or one of my idols growing up telling me to take his jumper off. And I'm like, oh man, we better win. We lost. But
I watched your highlights of that game just before, and you were I don't know what you were like, some sort of Energizer bunny. You were unleashed,
because Cuzzy said some words to me. That's why
you would miss kick it and chase up your own miss kick. You were running. You did not stop running the entire time.
That's going to me. That you were everywhere. That's the only way to just mask everything and get through.
It was just if you haven't I don't know, people listening, just go have a look at it's funny watching you dart around the field. They're just out of control. It's good.
You jumped you sort of probably rose to prominence a little bit, at least outside of Perth from that Hawthorn game.
Yeah, that was my second game.
So that's your first home game. I remember sitting in the stands, horrific weather, terrible weather.
Yeah,
hot sideways rain.
I try to explain that to people. It was actually one of the worst weather days I've seen at a footy game ever.
Yeah, and you late in the game, last quarter I think, get put basically one out in the square, and Campbell Brown.
Campbell Brown was Will Schofield at Peel Thunder. Just thought he'd come and rough me up.
But what no offense to Brownie, great player, but what's he doing on you? He's not tall.
He's not tall. He's not a quick defender. I was like, he's not really agile. I still tease him now when I see him. I'm like, why? He goes, oh mate. They were the reigning premiers too, so they had an aura about them that Hawthorn and these guys are tough guys. And it's funny looking back now, but every time I watch that vision, I always see Campbell coming and trying to knock me back and hit me. And
a lot of cheap shots in the back.
What did you do? Did you kick 2 or 3 goals in that spurt? You were smothering and spinning. And
I kicked 3 goals. That was actually my first AFL goal, that one where I spun around and kicked them a left, that sort of thing. Never would have thought my first goal would be on my left foot. I tried to have a bounce in the wet. There was all that sort of stuff.
That's a good one. But you outran him, picked it up anyway, kicked a goal. Yeah, that was good. That bounce is good.
So you kicked 3 goals. Do you have any kicks you had?
3?
Yeah.
I reckon I didn't touch it. Someone was like, we can't put him on the bench. Let's chuck him to full forward. So, mate.
So you'd gone into the last quarter with 0 kicks.
0 kicks. There's probably 2 handballs and a few hit-outs. But no one needed to know that, mate.
I just quickly looked it up. I was
but the ending was what it was all about. And that was a good night. I don't reckon I paid for a drink in Perth for the next 10 years after that. So it was good fun. And nah.
Do you remember all that attention? I think of Harley Reid now, right? And you're doing a bit with the club at the moment.
Yeah.
Can looking at right now how you feel, can you, is that comparable? Did you feel as a young kid there was a lot of attention on you?
Yeah, I think so. There was a lot of it wherever you went, it was just non-stop. And you saw it firsthand, at events, kids clinics, where you'd have a line of 1,000 kids in your line sort of thing.
Sco would be picking up water bottles.
4 or 5. He's giving them water. No, it's but it was wild, and it was always hard because you'd have some proper rock stars in your team, like premiership players from the 06 era. So it was always hard to go, all this attention's coming on, but we've got some great players. But it's probably the same with Harley now at West Coast. He's copping that when you've got, the Dom Sheeds, the Jeremy McGoverns, Elliot Yo's and that still around. So but I think just with social media, like being as big as it is now, hit 100 million, TV shows, podcasts, everything, like channels, there's like probably more eyes on it, and people that wouldn't really know who he is or know what footy is see it. So
whereas when you were his age, it was a little bit more localized.
Yeah, there was like Facebook, MySpace, so that was it. Yeah, and which it wasn't. Like now, you could be far north Queensland and you'd know who Harley is. So it I feel for him because it's actually a big bit of pressure to have that on you. And I think one of the things was he's in the paper every single day. Like I was always on the paper, but not as consecutive as what he had. And I think they almost did it in a way that they knew it was getting talking points around the country. So so I felt for him, but hopefully he finds his groove. And your second year is always one of your toughest years you go through as a footballer. So I think he's handled it really well regardless.
Well,
how quickly did wasn't there like a West Coast employee that was sort of like just following you around and sort of being your your bodyguard a bit? How quickly did they have to institute like someone just being around with you?
Yeah, he came in. When did Stage come in? Maybe my third
9,
year.
10, I reckon.
Yeah, second or third year came in. So he was there for the cameraman. He was there for the team. He was there for the whole team. He was there to look after the whole team. Integrity officer.
Right.
But
he's still there.
He's still there now. He holds the board up if anyone ever sees him.
He pretends like he's got something to do. He acts very busy, but he's not actually doing much.
But no, he'd have to look after me. So whether it was like, I don't know, like things like walking, and Harley goes through it now, like walking from the airport, checking your bag in to get to the gate, or going to a function, or going like the Crown, walking through the entrance, it takes 10, 15 minutes longer than what it would take anyone else. So he was mainly there for that sort of thing. I don't know.
Do you look at it as a burden at stages? Because like I always used to watch you, mate, and like we're good mates, and I'd see you out, out if we were going out together, or in circumstances like that. And you're exactly right. It was just different for you, but like you haven't really ever had it any other way. So I just wonder.
No, that's all I've known. So like ever since the day I've been going out or going into public, that's how it's been. So it's tough and it's bad, but it's not like I've had 5 or 10 years of not doing anything. Then I don't know,
just jumped to start.
Yeah, did that, and then that had to deal with that sort of change. So, I've always sort of, I always look different than anything. It's people staring at me anyway, but it's But I don't know. I've always, everywhere I go, you just got to be on thinking every single time. Like,
do you ever wish that wasn't the case?
Sometimes, like I used to skate to Fiji most years or go overseas to try and get away from Perth because it was just like, I don't know. I look at some guys that can just get up in the morning, not have a shower, and just go fill the car up, buy milk and that, not wear shoes, like that sort of thing. No chance. If I did that, everyone would be like, "Oh, he's off the rails." Like, look, it'll be in the paper, that sort of thing. So it's like those little things that you just have to plan for everything, or like you go get it. Like I go fill the car up, and I get a photo with someone that's in the car next to me, comes over with their kids. Then I go inside, someone wants a photo. Then you get the Indian guy behind the counter who doesn't even watch footy, but he's seen the other 3 people get a photo, and he's like, "Oh, I'll get a photo." So it's like it's just the compiling of one after another, and it's died down a little bit now. It's still a little bit hectic when you go around the certain things or certain places, but. Like you said, it's always been the way since I started.
You were captured carrying a box once in the West Australian. That was like on the back page.
I remember what's in the box. That was a thing. I was like, what? And what I hate is people abuse me. Like I employ them to follow me around like a TMZ to go, take a photo of me and post it. And then because I'd start copping it. And it's probably these blokes too with little burner accounts.
Not me. I remember I found out what was in the box. You were just carrying someone else's boots or something.
Yeah, like Nick again. Here, another story. Oh, here we go again. And I was just like, I don't ask for it. They do it. And that's probably the same as Harley. Probably cops it. People going, oh, we don't give a crap. Like there's other stuff happening in the world. But the thing is, as an athlete, you don't ask for it. They just post it. And it's sometimes the most absurd thing. Like,
what's in the box?
I've seen players. I think I saw Jack Darling carrying a carton of beer on his shoulder once. It was like a long weekend or something, and he's doing that, and that was in the paper. I'm like, What? But it sells. People read it and people remember it. What's in the box?
You mentioned TMZ. You were on TMZ too.
Yeah, I was in America.
Not many AFL players are getting on TMZ.
I was just walking through Venice and this Aussie guy works for him just saw me and did a little interview for him.
Is that right?
Which was pretty good. It was like, this is cool. I didn't mind that, but
you won't say it, mate. But like I've always watched you and just like thought how incredibly humble, and you might be feeling frustrated, but you don't often show it with fans. Like, do you have to? Like, is that something, like you say, you're always thinking about it? So it sounds like something you've got to really be mindful of. Like, and you're also a great man, but I just...
No, you just have to think. I think you have to... I always know where I'm going. So if I know it's going to be like too hectic, I'll have to just get the mindset to go, oh, well, I'm going to have to deal with this. Yeah. But then I'll weigh out, like Britain, I'll weigh out where we go, because it's like Christmas time, like if we're down in Dunsborough, there's no chance I'm going to the bakery or going to the Woolworths, like that middle central hub, because... It's just too much. So, or
be like a mouse clinic.
Yeah, like that. Yeah. The Scarborough markets, things like that. Like, I've always wanted to go to the Royal Show, like for years, but I just like know that it's just like it'd be one of the most hectic things ever.
It's hard enough to get around.
Yeah, so I'm not thinking I'm going to wear like a Halloween mask or something just so I can go do it. But then people would be looking at me even weirder, like, well, who's this creep walking around with a mask? And,
this 205
playing little kids games and stuff like, it'd be like, this is like Godzilla or something.
A horror movie.
Yeah. So I always think about where I'm going and how much energy or what you need to put out there, because otherwise, your family, your friends become, or your teammates become photographers after time. Like, here, can you take a picture? Can you do this and that? And it's like, people go, I don't want to hang out with you. Like, it's like
I wanted to hang out with. I used to turn into bodyguard. Everyone get the fuck out.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. You need some people that actually can tell people to go away.
Yeah, be the bad guy.
I wouldn't do it all the time. I'd always be like, yeah. But then and some of your teammates just would leave you hanging, like wouldn't care and go, oh, well, that's your job, whatever. But Scully and a few others were the few that would just be like, all right, that's enough. Like,
signing session over. Yeah, get back
done. You know what I mean? Like someone taking a selfie on the plane when you're asleep or something like that. Like, you pull them up and go. That's what I think Scully's always been good around. Like, just telling people, like, would you like that? I remember you always do that. It was always like, because you get people that would just come up with their phone like this to your face and just take a photo of you. And then like Sco or someone would take a photo. Eric McKenzie was always really good. He'd just get it and take a selfie of himself. Like he wouldn't take a photo or would crop you out.
Imagine getting the phone back. It's just...
Yeah. But it's just like, I'd cop that. It'd be good.
So you say that, you've had to consider the attention you get and, what big deal. But it sounds like maybe you've had to learn that, because I do think back to a team meeting and instead of the footy coming up and reviewing the game, they put a Perth Wildcats game up.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like a halftime show and everyone's sitting there. John Worsfold just basically asked the group, he's like, just want to ask the group what they think about this. And no one had seen it. They cut to you, young, 18, 19-year-old.
Oh, idiot.
Dunking over. How many did you dunk over?
Yeah.
What were you doing? Because you talk about, had to be always mindful about the attention I get. Do you reckon that might get a bit of attention?
Yeah, I know. I didn't. Sometimes I enjoyed it. Sometimes I'd say I didn't like it, but then I'd be up DJing in the club or something. It's hard. Like, I don't know. It depends. But I knew. I don't know. I said
people haven't seen it. What happened?
Yeah. No, the Wildcats. Obviously, I actually said to Jesse Wagstaff about a month ago. I said he was one of those guys, and I said, all you guys are like 6 foot, 7 foot tall, and you get a fast break, and no one's dunking it. Like everyone's just doing these little layups, like slam the thing. Like, and I watched a lot of NBA, so maybe it was unfair of me at the time. It's like asking someone to kick, left foot banana from the boundary, which I do in AFL, which asking an amateur or waffle team to do that. It's a bit different. So I said that, and anyway, the court announcer got up there, and he actually told everyone. He goes, "Oh, Nick said this, they can't dunk and all this," and then I was like, "Oh, I'll do it." He goes, "Come and do it." And I said, "Oh, one better, I'll jump over you and do it." Like that's how easy it is. So I got caught up, and like the crowd.
So it wasn't
nuts. No, the crowd was nuts. Got up. It was during a timeout, and I just quickly got up there, did it, jumped over him, dunked it. There's some cool photos. I got a little framed picture of it. It's actually quite nice. I actually like it. But then I sat back down in my seat, and like I was like,
you pumped?
The whole stadium was looking at me. I'm like, this is the best thing. Like, I'm a youngster. I don't know how old I was. I'm like, this is the best thing ever. I was at Challenge Stadium, and I'm like, the whole place is looking at me pumped. The cheerleaders are like jumping around, still shaking their pom-poms. I'm thinking, I'm the king now. Like, this is it. And then I just look at my phone, and it's Nizzy, Trevor Nisbet, the CEO.
Ringing.
Yeah, ringing. Like, and I just screen it. And then I won't repeat it. Don't effing screen my calls. It was a text message. My office tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. And I'm like, oh, no. And I went in there. And like, yeah, it was bad. I still tell Woosha now because John Morsfold, Peter Worsfold, his brother, Trevor Nisbet, and then Steve Woodhouse, who was the footy manager at the time, all sat in there, and it was all about like being responsible and making good choices. And if I got injured, like, or Coxie got injured, like he's putting more pressure on his body and what all this stuff. In the back of my head, I'm like, you guys pay me to jump, so like that's all I'm doing. Like, shut up. But I was like, yes sir, yes sir. But what happened? Yeah, Woosha goes and shows the team, and like it was a bit of like, oh, have you seen this sort of thing? I'll get in trouble. I've got to do a few sessions and stuff about doing the right thing. But I just remember Woosha and Buckets Pete having me in a room afterwards, and we're like rewatching on the laptop, going, oh, that's cool. That's awesome. Yeah, it's like, they're just jealous. White man can't jump. Like, I was like, this is like, why am I in trouble publicly? And then like, I'm okay here. But I guess that goes back to making the right decisions and not, you can do those things, just don't do it on a national scale. Yeah, it's like But
I thought it was planned. I can't believe
no, I wasn't allowed to go to Wildcats games for a while either. So I didn't go back to a game until they played at RSC Arena, so that was years before I got back. Yeah.
And you're now full circle. You're the number one.
Yeah, that's so good. You should dunk again.
I'm sitting courtside. I don't think I could do it now.
You need a big trampoline.
Yeah.
Oh, one of those front flipping guys.
I wish. They actually asked me last week to go and stand underneath them, but no, I'm staying away from the court.
You've had some interesting sort of ones across the career that I know about around different things like that. So I was thinking before you came in here about like your Nike sponsorship.
Yeah.
And like pretty early days. Like was that
year 12, I reckon, or so.
So you signed a deal with Nike and whatever that looked like? Yeah.
Obviously got a bigger size foot than most, so finding shoes was always real hard growing up. Like I'd wear like dress shoes and things like that. I'd go to spend less shoes, like bets and get like real like $10 shoes. I lived off all that stuff. I'd live off that stuff, and I was like, man, I'm not an old man yet. I'm not like 50. I'm not 60. Like, so I hated that. So then, I got in contact. There was a guy named Wes Garth who was at Nike, and Aaron Sandilands used to actually get some gridiron boots from him, and it all started off the back of that. It's like, oh, can't really find the right footy boot to wear, and I used to always wear Puma Kings, the leather ones, and I thought they were probably the greatest football boot of all time growing up, and
everyone wore them.
Everyone was wearing them, like, and I saw the great, like Chris Judd was wearing them, and I thought, oh, this is the best thing. Daniel Kerr was wearing it at West Coast, so I was like, I'm not going to get anything like that. So like, I wonder if Nike can make something, and they brought this big like trolley bag thing with like 50 pairs of boots in it. At Subiaco Oval, and I was playing the state game, I think the day after, and there were all these big NFL boots. And like, obviously, if you go back and look at what Aaron Sandilands used to wear in his feet, they were those. And I was like, there's no chance in hell I'm wearing those. That's one way to get bullied in the AFL. Like,
are they like high ankle or something?
High ankle, big straps, like all that. I'm like, no one's wearing that unless you're like size 20 or something, like, and you can beat everyone up. You do not care. Like, I was like, nah, this is. Imagine me walking into the change rooms and Scully's sitting there and wearing those.
What are those?
Here we go. Non-stop. So, so I was like, nah. So then they said, all right, leave it with us. They went to Italy, and then I used to get my boots custom made out of Italy. There's a little factory out there that would make my boots every year. So they'd make 10 or so pairs every year. And then the whole Nike contract came on the back of that. So Ash Reed, who's still the CEO, was just like, shoes, clothes, that, and
because at the time West Coast was sponsored by Puma.
That was always hard. I
remember you having to like stitch, like at times you were wearing Nikes and it was like
I'd paint
Puma stitched over the top of it. Like
a photo shoots and stuff, I'd have to put a Puma logo over it, or I'd have to paint my boots all black and that for like games and stuff like that, because they were considered tools of the trade, which you're allowed to wear, but our club must have been getting a lot of money from Puma or something. I don't know. The AFL rules were a bit different back then, so you weren't allowed to actually have a opposing sponsor. I wasn't even allowed to like promote them like externally. Like now you see boys, whatever sponsorship they have, they're plugging them everywhere they can, like even if they conflict with the club. But so I was always respectful of that, but it was a hard one. But I've always had Nike, and I always, I used to work at a sneaker store as a teenager, so I collected a few pairs of shoes. But now this opened up a whole new realm. I'm like, wow, this is like Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory.
How many do you have?
I've had to cull down now because I've had to get kids' toys and all this sort of thing in one area. But no, I reckon at its peak, I would have had close to 500 or so pairs.
Jeepers.
Are you wearing them? Or you just got them?
I'd wear every now and then. Some of them haven't ever been worn. Yeah. but I've culled a little bit, maybe 3 or 4 pairs. But but they're there. They're worth a bit of money too. Like
there's a big market for that.
Yeah, it's massive, and I've been offered some big money for some shoes, but I'm one of those people that I don't know. That just sentimental. I'm a bit of a hoarder. I'm like, I don't really want to get rid of them.
How do you even store 500? That would take up a quarter of this room.
Yeah, I have a room. I have a room for the shoes. So it's actually disgusting habit. Like I don't know. It's a very what would you call it? It's a luxury to have something like that. To dedicate a whole room where someone could be sleeping.
Yes.
For sneakers. So I cop it at home all the time. I'm like, yeah. Like we're looking for rooms to put stuff in, or have the kids like. My kids are currently sharing a room at the moment because my shoes have their own room. Yeah, I know. That's very selfish. Mate, I've worked hard for 15 years. Let me have something.
Yeah. Hey, we're not your wife, mate. Don't sell it to us.
It's all coming out now. Yeah.
It sounds like you're talking to
that room's
Brit,
slowly getting kicked out. Yeah, it's gonna be a sad day, but I don't know.
We haven't spoken many footy memories, but I think we should get into a few of those.
Yeah.
You're pretty fortunate, like, to play with and alongside and underneath Dean Cox, like for a big part of your career. And 2012, you're All Australian. Was he All Australian that year as well? Is that right?
He was, yeah.
So you two,
I think I know where you're going with that.
No, I'm not going anywhere.
It was
you're laughing though.
Yeah, because I got go back and look at the team, but I was the starting ruck. He was forward pocket on
Is that right?
there. Yeah,
No,
wow.
wow.
He cops it. But he does. He always has a go at Mark Lecrae going, it's not that hard to be All Australian forward pocket. Like, I've done it. Like, which Lecker still hates to this day. But yeah.
So you two in the same team were effectively 2 rucks in the All Australian team.
Pretty much. And like the thing was we could work off each other. It's probably the first part of when any team started having sort of 2 rucks that would play out the game and play forward. We'd play on ball. I remember we used to have that little thing.
Yeah, you'd go in the middle as a ruckman.
Nail in the coffin, they call it. Yeah,
Ruck
Nick,
rover.
a little rover. So Coxie would tap down to me or be a decoy, and it actually worked. But it worked well because we could both hang around the stoppage because at the time, as you know, third man up was still around. So you could come in and like Coxie would body up Aaron Sandlands, and I'd come over the top and be able to tap it and things like that. So it worked well in forward stoppages. You just confuse people. But then we'd go forward and kick goals. So we'd kick 20, 30 goals each. I reckon that 2012 a year. So, and now it's pretty common to have 2 rucks that can play forward in most teams that really do well.
Yeah, we played a prelim that year. I think that was that year.
11 maybe, yeah.
But what about Dean Cox? He's now head coach of Sydney. What?
Yeah.
I don't know, speak about him.
Mate, it's one of the best. I think one of the best sort of integrations into football was to have Coxie as a mentor, as a teammate, because most people want a good coach or a good mentor out there, but to have him as my ruckman that I'm trying to take his spot or work alongside was the best sort of introduction you could get because he didn't make it easy. He'd always make it pretty hard. And people forget, there was probably 4 or 5 other ruckmen at West Coast when I first got there. And, Quinton Lynch was rucking a fair bit. Mark Seaby, who was a great ruckman, was rucking as well. We had Big Will Sullivan. Like, there was so many tall guys that actually could play footy. So I was trying to get past them, but at the same time I was like, Coxie, I'm going to just watch everything you do and try and emulate what you do. And, he was a rookie pick, went in late. Boy from Danbury, couldn't really run, they said, at East Perth, and then just built up his base and won a flag there, and then just went on to great heights, as everyone knows. But to have him right there and just show me, like, I could never do what he did skillfully. There was things he did that, I've never seen a ruckman, be as talented on his left foot as he is on his right. Like, that's one thing that I always saw, and he just was a workhorse. Like, he'd have his 30 touches, week in, week out, because he'd just get the stop. He just ran smart. So, as you said, early days, I was just erratic. I just go everywhere, kick it and chase. It was just the whole.
Headless chook.
It was just a Bushby Street, just running after the ball in front of rubbish bins. That's all I did at the AFL level. I was just having fun. But Coxie actually broke it down. Like, he was a big thinker. He'd think about, all right, if the footy's on this side and they play this style of footy, I'm going to start running these angles to get to that next stoppage so then I can cut off 150 metres, which, as you know, even playing as a defender, all your angles and which way you stand and face and that players can save you so much in a game. And
so he taught you that? Pretty
much, yeah. I still didn't pick it up quite as well as he did. Still learning it now. But he taught me all of that, which I was like, I can understand when I said people like Jamar and that sit down with him, is because his knowledge of the game is, I don't know, as ruckman, you get grouped into thinking, oh, these big dopey ruckmen a fair bit.
We are, most of you.
But Coxie was a different cat, and he actually thought about the game and really lived and breathed it. So
unsurprising, he's the head coach at Sydney then?
No, it doesn't surprise me at all. Yeah, some people might look at it and go, why would you have a ruck as a coach? But no, he's fit for the job, and I've seen some of the things he started implementing the last few weeks, and I can see that's the real West Coast flavour, the double.
Did you see the double
2K? I saw that, and I was like, you weren't doing that.
I texted you. I said, what are you doing here, mate?
He was sitting next to me, but I remember that's a real Woosher thing, like just run the 2K and then stop and go again, just to see how people reacted.
Yeah, that's good.
How'd you go with that?
I hated it, mate. I was.
But you know how that. So Coxie, I saw something where he spoke about that 3 or 4 minutes between announcing that, him going, there's another 2K, I get ready, you got 3 minutes to repair. He'd watch to see who reacted how. How did you react?
So like, he said he didn't care about the time in the second, but as a player, you're like, oh my God, I'm going to run so slow.
Yeah.
Mate, I was horrific, like terrible. I would have been moping around and lipping off, fucking coaches.
I would have been sitting there in the stands with my Gatorade going, I'm not doing it.
I was going to say, you would have been doing nothing.
I didn't do it.
So, it's just interesting, like, getting that perspective as well, because as a player, you get so caught up in, oh, my God, what are they going to think if I do a slow time?
Yeah.
I'm not going to recover. I'm not fit enough. But they're not even watching that.
No, they don't care. Well, that's why I think Darren Glass was really good. Darren Glass would always be bottom 3 or so in our 2Ks. But he'd be like, put a footy out there, I'll smash all of you. So he probably realised that early days going, you know what? Everyone can run and be as fit as I want, but footy smart sometimes just takes over.
A couple more moments.
We got to go to this one, the 2013.
Yeah, absolutely. Give it to me.
The 2013 playing against Kangaroos, down late. You get a mark and you get a chance to kick after the siren. When you're about to kick that, are you like taken back to, I don't know, the mid-val days of, playing on because, when you're a kid, you're just like, after the siren, you would have done that so many times.
Yeah, in the backyard.
In the backyard, practicing that sort of thing. Did you, I don't know, feel the pressure at the moment of
No,
that?
I think the common thing with me is trying to prove people wrong. And it's normally people close to you. And I look back at that clip and I think it's trying to prove my teammates wrong. Like, if you ever watch that clip back again, the amount of guys that have got their hands in their head, like facing the other way, going, oh no. Like, I just remember, if you watch it closely, look at Daniel Kerr. Kerry's like, he's almost upset that I marked it. He's like thinking, he's going to miss this. He's like facing the other way, hands in his thing going like this. And I'm like, mate, there's only 1 or 2 guys that come over to me and like actually talk me through it.
Who did? What did they say?
No, just to go back, take my time. Obviously, the runner and that sort of stuff come out with how much times actually I don't play on, that sort of thing. But yeah, I do go back to those moments of kicking after the siren. But I think it's more fear. I don't think it's anyone that says they're courageous in those moments, they're lying to you, because you're like, I kicked this, I'm a hero. I missed this, I'll never live this down. Like, it's like, but then it's like, do you really have that much to lose if you do miss it? Like,
why'd you copy Justin Longmuir's celebration?
Well, Longy was the coach, so he was our coach, forwards coach at the time, and Longy's people obviously running into the crowd. So I think maybe I just got caught up in what Longy had done. I must have watched him do it and thought, this is how to do it. And I copped it a fair bit because everyone's like, why did you run away from the players, not run to us?
We did a review on it. We watched it on the Monday and back and forward. Like, have a look at Scully coming to give you a high five and you're jumping to the crowd.
Everyone's just jumping on the crowd at Bow Waters. I remember it was like, I don't know, I just wanted to get the crowd involved. It was, it was weird. I think emotions just take over at that point.
Yeah.
But it's funny. I had a thing down in Katanning a couple of years ago, out of all places, and I met a kid down there. Well, he was not a kid; he's probably in his 20s now. He was a kid at the time. He's the one that actually caught that game ball from when I kicked it. So he marked it, and I watched the vision because I went back into the Eagles archives behind the goals and stuff, and you see him catch it and just sprint as like a 14-year-old. So he's marked the footy and taken off out the gates of Subi and just run for his life.
Taking it home.
So he's got that footy.
Does he?
And he was like, oh, Nick, if you ever want it back. I said, nah, mate, that's an amazing story. You keep it. You'll cherish it more than I will.
See, he's got it. Because no one would ever watch that. Everyone's watching you and the celebration.
So no one watches him. So when I went back and watched it, I'm like, oh, he wasn't lying. So he's caught it and just run off. So I'd love to find out where he is now and if you ever get a hold of him. But it'd actually be a cool story to see how quick he ran, if anyone chased him, and where he ran to.
We should try.
Please
and
tell us.
Let's try and track him down. If you're listening to this young man, we'd love to have a chat. We'll get you on BackChat.
I hate for someone to have bought that footy thinking that it was that ball at an auction somewhere and it wasn't.
Players don't do that, mate. What do you mean? You've taken some massive marks, like absolutely massive. I've been under a couple. That's unreal.
You've had under some really good screamers from other players too.
Me and Ryan, you, like Willie Rioli, fucking half the team, mate. Scaffolding.
Oh, yeah, I know.
Any like, I don't know, what stands out to you as best ones you've taken? Or do any?
Yeah. There was one at Subi actually. I reckon I almost jumped over a bloke. I don't know who it was, a St Kilda player. That one was pretty good. The Freo one, there was one that didn't get much recognition. I actually jumped on Aaron Sandilands and Zach Clark, who were big guys.
Yes.
Is that when did you like break his ribs in that?
Oh,
that
that was
one?
a different one. That was a different one. Yeah, poor Sandy. He was a great fella. Yeah, it was. But yeah, I jumped on both of those guys. So I was on both their shoulders, and that is just like it was normal. I'm like, man, that's one of my favourite marks of all time.
Yeah.
Didn't even get a mark of the round nomination.
Yeah, do you think sometimes because you did take a lot of them, people are like,
Just another
It's
one.
just normal. Yeah. But then I cop it for not taking any marks. I'm like,
You just save them up for the
save
good
them
ones.
up for those. But there's a couple there. But
you took mark of the year
I take a mark of the year, against Geelong
on Sinker. Kelsey
That's right. Yeah, he was on there. Yeah, he was filthy. I don't know. I think anyone takes a real big mark and you're under it, it's hard. Andrew Embley was like that. He was always be. Jeremy Howe. Remember Jeremy Howe took us a mark. He's taken so many on Embers, but he took one going backwards. He took a hanger on Embers running backwards, which I've never seen in my whole life. I'm thinking, how does he do it? I always say it to whack when I see him because I'm like, I've never seen anyone do something like that.
Embers is under the Sampi line. He's under Howe about 5 times.
Yeah. That's the worst. And it's like, Jack Darling was like that too. He's been under one of mine. I think one against Carlton. I took it. Eddie had. Early days. I think. Jack Darling was underneath me on that one, and.
I remember that one.
In their defence as well, you're a giant jumping on their shoulders, probably copping a knee to the head. So it can't be nice getting a mark taken when you're on top.
Yeah, I don't know. But then, those ones at training, there's been a couple as well. But I always enjoy the ones at training because guys have a bit more license. So Liam Ryan was always the one that would take hangers at training, and you go, imagine like if this was in the game. This is the mark of the century. Like it's huge. And Scully was normally under it.
Every time
Start grabbing their legs.
Yeah, correct. 2015 grand final.
Yeah, that was a tough one. That year was a tough year for me, obviously. Losing mum that year, so I went back to Fiji for a bit. And then coming back, sort of one thing that I regret, not really regret, but I probably look back on and really sad about is I didn't really get to take in the grand final parade and all the sort of build up to making a grand final as much. Like the North Melbourne game was awesome. Like that win, that was probably the loudest I've ever heard a crowd.
Prelim.
Yeah, the West Coast crowd ever. Like that was one of the best games I've ever played in, I think.
Yeah.
And then there was also the thrill of whether, Freo are going to make it into that grand final too. So the whole state was just really buzzing because it could have been a WA grand final. So it all that was happening. But then I had all my family stuff, and then even that night, like after that North game, I had to go back and sort some stuff out and all that. So leading into going to Melbourne, it was a bit of a shambles, and we got in the bus. There's some controversy at the airport and all that stuff. And I literally didn't leave my room. I did captain's run and then did the parade. But my brother came and stayed at the room with me. Literally stayed in the room the whole time. Like people were catching up with their families and that in the lobbies and all that sort of thing, like the build up. And I was just like, I just wasn't really present, wasn't really there, which I sort of regret a bit. And to then go on and lose that final was just like, just like another stab. It was just like, like this hurts. But it just made you a little bit hungry to get back because, then I go on to get injured and whatever the year after. And you start going, I really need to win a flag.
Yeah. I mean, the grief stuff, especially with a parent, like, I've been through similar, but I think it's different for everyone, right? So, we're much older, time goes by and things heal, but do you look back and I don't know. Do you just think it's one of those things that you don't know how to deal with it, and you just deal with it how you deal with it? Just
yeah. When you're young, you just go through the motions. I remember when it all happened. I went back to my village and I was there for however long, and I wasn't actually going to come home. I was like, I actually don't give a crap about footy right now. I was like we were going all right, and I was like, I don't care if we're going all right. Like I don't really. Football is like the last thing I can worry about right now.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until some of the elders in my village were like, stop wasting your time here. You're going to sit here and, play with banana leaves and climb coconut trees. Like, there's nothing here for you. Get out of here. So I went home, and that was probably the bit of a kick that I needed to go, how do you sort of make your family proud and mum proud? And that's to go and play football. But in saying that, I still wasn't as present as what I wish I was. But that's easy to say now because, if I was in that situation, I could go, oh, yeah, I do this, this, and this. But when it's happening, you're just like, just get through and whatever. But yeah, the parade, I actually don't really remember the grand final parade at all.
Neither do I.
Yeah. And I don't know whether that's just everyone when you don't win it and stuff. When you win things, maybe you just take everything in. But yeah, I don't know. I sat in the back of the car for the 18 parade and I was like, I remember everything from that. But maybe it's just a different stress, different thing when you're not actually playing in it.
Did you ever go back and watch 15 grand final?
Yeah, I reckon that. I think we must not have scouted that Cyril Rioli played for Hawthorn because he ran amok.
Hey, don't put on the back line, mate.
No, but they all did, and it was just like
their whole team.
Oh, how'd you kick the goal from like?
Yeah, that was on me, perfect.
But it was just like impossible angle. But I'm like, when guys are doing things like that, I'm like, they're on. Like teams are on,
and we weren't on too. They were on,
yeah,
and we were off.
We were way off, and it was just like a big build up of it all. But like I said, it was a massive build up leading into that grand final. They'd obviously been there a few times. Most of those players. A lot of us guys, it was our first time, to play in a grand final, and we rarely played the G. So it was just that big build-up. But, yeah, it was sort of one that got away. But in saying that, they were a great side during that period. We just copped them at the wrong time. But, we obviously went back a couple of years later.
The next few years, do both your knees, 17 and 18. What's it like to what's it you talk about? I guess the effects of it, but like, what's it like to do a knee? Like, what? Yeah,
mentally, it's like one of the worst things ever. Like, you start thinking, especially when you're a jumping or a power athlete, you start thinking, "Am I done? Like, can I do it again?" Especially when you can't move. Like, it's just an awkward feeling of you just can't, bend your knee. Like, you can have it straight in this brace for so long, but then you just want to just. I don't know, it's like a scratch that you just can't itch. It's just so annoying. And then, I don't know, I think the lucky thing with me is having people like Mitch Brown, Eric McKenzie around. They'd obviously done theirs at the same time and they'd been to America. They knew the process. And our physios are really well-versed on how to rehab a knee. So I was actually quite happy that when I did do it, I had the right people around me who would, like, fresh off doing it, like that sort of rehab with other guys. So everything was laid out for me. I was able to go to America for a fair chunk both times. I was able to lean on those boys and watch the videos that they did and that. But the mental part is the hardest thing, like not being able to do what you love for so long. Like, it was 2 or 3 months, it's easy. But when it's like a whole year to 16, 17 months, it's like what do you do with yourself? Like, and you start trying to coach and be involved and do all these things, which is good to keep your thing. But really all you want to do is play football. So yeah, the first time around was tough. It was hard. But then the second time, that's when you start really questioning, like, oh my God, am I done? People start writing articles like, you're done.
And it was the opposite now.
It was my opposite one. Yeah, they reckon most of the time when you do one, you compensate, so you end up doing your other one. And
right.
So yeah, doing both was pretty hard, but that sort of spurred me on to try and prove people wrong once again. Which I sort of did a little bit. Came back, I worked really hard to try and get myself in the right condition and strength and all that sort of stuff to just come back and. Yeah, I really wanted to win a flag, especially after watching the 18 boys. I was like, all right, now it's my turn. You guys had your shot.
So what's that like? And I can imagine difficult. Spoken to Shep about this, spoken to Easy about this, Pritter. There's a lot of boys actually in similar baskets through different circumstances. Gaffy, absolutely. Yeah. Like Bowie Waters, that year, Sam Butler. What are your reflections on that? Because you do ACL around 17, and obviously you're done for the year. So, what's that feeling like through finals and grand final day? Is it jealousy or is it you wish you were there or?
Yeah, it was hard. I that 17 one or the 18 one, sorry, was tough because I yeah, we'd been playing some good footy. Obviously, just moved into Optus Stadium. Like, that was awesome, a big spectacle. We won 10 in a row, I reckon. So we're flying. And I was playing really well at the time as well. So I was pretty happy with how it was all going. So then to do that, I was like, But then I think what made it, this sounds very selfish, but what made it easier for me was Eric McKenzie was injured. Andrew Gaff got suspended for hitting Brayshaw. And then Shep did his hammy late
In the qualifying
final. So those guys probably had it a little bit harder. It was a bit more raw for them, the grand final. So I had a bit of time. I get to go and, go and train away and do all that sort of stuff for a couple of weeks. I think I went to Philly for 2 or 3 weeks and just trained over there. So I sort of escaped football for a good month, where I could just focus on getting my body right and then coming back. And then I just started coaching and helping out, on the bench and things like that. Whereas those guys were still playing up until late. And then, like Gaffy was fully fit and obviously just couldn't play because of suspension. So I reckon he had it the hardest because his body was able and he was better than most boys out there on the wing.
Were you on the bench coaching?
Yep. Yeah, so I coached on the bench. So even the 18 grand final, I sat on the bench. When I say coaching, I had the laptop out just trying to show ruck vision. It's not that hard. Just ball, tap ball.
Is that what you're doing with Scotty and Vards?
Yep. So I just would go with them, and I'd always just, I have a little book that I keep on every opponent. So I just sort of just started whipping that out for that last 6 weeks for those guys to go, all right, we got Grundy, he's got short legs, long torso. This is where you pressure stuff. This is where you push. Or you're versing so-and-so, this is the hip, this is where you grab, or this is how you can beat him in the throw-ins. I was real, and that's probably came from Coxie, but I always thought about the game depending on who the opponent was. So those two boys, I literally gave them the keys and said, here, this is it, this is all the secrets, this is it. Because I was like, I just wanted to help them. I wanted them to win. I was like, I was jealous, but I was a bit like, there was a time where I was like, those fireworks are going off after the game, and I remember Will.i.am was just about to start playing and the boys were walking out. I was ready to go and lay on those fireworks. So I was just like, I don't want to be here. I was like, sorry, but I said that, and I was like, I think I said it in front of Shep, and he didn't like me saying it because he was real upset. But I was like, oh well, like you win some, you lose some, you get to do fun things like. I don't know. No point whinging about it. Like, no one's going to change it. No one's going to rewind it and go, oh, do you want to play, mate? Like, that's what I always felt that way. So, which is a bad way sometimes to think, but I was like, it's the truth though. Like, who's to say like, Dan Venables wants to play, another 5 or 6 grand finals, doesn't get opportunity, or Matt Prittis, who retired the year before, didn't get to play in it. Like, he'd be sitting there at home going crazy. So I'm like, who are we to go, oh, poor us. Yeah, but I was jealous. But I was actually happy, and I always talk about seeing the boys the weeks after, like going into bottle shops and stuff, and paying PayPass at the time with their premiership medals, just going beep, pretending to do that with their medals on the little scanner to pay for a carton of drinks at Wembley or something like that. It was fun, but it was a good period to be around. Obviously, seeing, I was one of those kids in 06 that were there when those boys rocked back into town and shut this place down, and then to see, be on the bus through Langley Park and that sort of thing and seeing the mayhem of 18, I was like, it's actually cool to witness a part of history.
Well, I think what actually probably not testifies, but like confirms sort of the way you're thinking about it, and you're not just talking shit, is on the Tuesday after the grand final, would have been very easy for you to just go, all right, I don't want anything to do with the boys, I'm just going to hibernate. We had everyone at Nick's house getting tattoos in your kitchen.
That's right. We had the tattoos. Yeah, all the benches at your house. At my house. Everyone was getting the West Coast Premiership tattoos on them. You
doing the tattoos?
No, I didn't touch it, but I was there. I liaised and organised it all through my mate Jackson.
Yeah, so I often think about that, and that must have been difficult, I think. But it just shows what sort of person you are. I don't know.
I was going to be drowning my sorrows either way, so I was like, may as well do it at home. Yeah, but no, it was tough. But I was like you said, what else are you going to do? If I sat at home and just cried, I'm missing out on some of the joys. So it was a great time. It was also, a tough time as well. But I was still playing footy, so I still knew I had a number of years left in me. So I was a bit like, oh, well, I just need to get better and get the team staying on track, and we'll go again. Because as you know, when you're in that premiership window, it's like, oh, you could win another one next year, or you could win another one the year after. So I was like, I'll get my chance. Yeah. Didn't quite get my chance, but we got close. We got close a few times.
Well, 19 grinds at me because I was driven, because I was very lucky to play in that in the grand final. like Shep getting injured. I wouldn't have played otherwise. I got dropped and I wouldn't have played without injury. So I'm on the other side of it. I would have been right with you. And I get, so 19 for me, I felt sort of indebted to guys that have missed out. And like, I know there was a lot of other guys in 19 that felt the same way. Like we really wanted to give you guys the opportunity to get there again.
Yeah.
And 19 like pisses me off. Clearly the way that year ended.
Yeah. That gets me as well.
Yeah.
That's probably what gets me, yeah. Like 19 was one of those years where I'm like when you look at the guys who missed out, there's actually some good guys. Like Eric McKenzie's one of the blokes that would die for his teammates. Like, so, yeah, the way that 19 ended, you know, that final, I still get angry at a few of those players who just, you know, I think Willie got done that year. A couple other guys.
That was the morning off. That was the morning off,
yeah. So that a couple other guys missed, like, just weren't on or just weren't preparing properly.
You look at that game against Geelong, like Gaffy kicked. I think Gaffy kicked 2 or 3 goals.
Yeah, and then I'm still angry at Tim Kelly because he was dominating as well against us. So I'm like, all those things are all happening. But yeah, I was like, cool, so close again. Like, but yeah, and you start to, like, when you do your off-season reviews and stuff, the coaches do pull that. Simo did start going, oh, are you guys happy with 18? Are you still this? Like, were you really hungry? That sort of thing, which that sort of, yeah. And it was hard because he'd point you guys out. He'd point us guys out that didn't play and go, look at their stats or look at the games they've had. Like, why haven't you guys like that? So it was always, I don't know, I'd go home going, were they like that or was it just a perfect storm? I don't know. But, oh, well, we just moved to 2020 again. But then, yeah, that's when sort of the COVID and all that sort of stuff started kicking in. And it was.
Well, mate, you went back-to-back BNF 2020, 2021, All-Australian, back-to-back 2020, 2021. So you, like you've just spoken about, you used it as a motivation to continue playing great footy, and which you did. There was some funny, one particular funny moment. I'm just going to read this out. Like one of the great. So this is tweeted. Is that right?
Yep.
So this is, I reckon it must be the Tuesday or Wednesday. It was a bit of a shit show. This is 2020. It's COVID. We're in a hub. We're playing at the Gabba with no one there. And on the Tuesday or Wednesday, this tweet goes out. West Coast, beat Nic Nat. Next point, run off him hard. He is lazy and unfit. We'll have a field day getting ball and marking everything. Get to the front and have grunt around the ground and get after ball on deck. Beat him in this area. Centre bounce, have clear plan and execute. That is with love from Riley O'Brien, your opponent for the upcoming game. Do you remember when you saw that? And what were you thinking?
Couldn't be any better fuel for me. I was like, we were bored. You know how what was that place? Royal Pines. I was like, there's nothing going on in that hub. We were sharing with Freo at the time, and it was like no friends, no family, just your teammates, and like you just start. Everyone starts getting real antsy and like fighting each other and all this sort of stuff. We had a few incidents, but it was the golf course. But it got to the point where you just wanted motivation to play teams because it was almost like the NBL or NBA where we'd play a couple games within the same week. Like it'd be like you'd play on a Friday night, but then you'd be playing again on the next Wednesday or so. Like they'd just be making the fixtures up as we went. So trying to find motivation for some of those games would have been so hard for a lot of players. And when that came out, I was just like, yes, this is perfect. Yeah. And because everyone's bored, everyone's sitting in hubs around the whole country. Every other AFL player, everyone at home is on social media. They all saw it. So they start sending it to me. They send it to each other. It's on a TV show. So and then he came out. I think I put something else back out there and then he came out saying it was an accident. I don't know, like his phone
broken. Accidentally tweeted.
Accidentally tweeted.
Copied and pasted a note, then tweeted
I was like, how's it accidentally posted? That doesn't work in my head. I spend a lot of time on social media and that's almost half impossible.
There was so much. I just remember as a fan, there was so much hype around that game. Because like at the same time, you're like watching this hub footy, it's like it's not quite the same. And all of a sudden you're just like, oh man, I want him to beat the shit out of him. Like it was just so good.
So who came up with the phone plan?
Thumper. So Steve Bandy, who had the West Coast, he knew I had a deal with Telstra at the time.
Yes.
And he goes, you know what would be the best thing? If you just go and just get him a phone and, obviously beat him and do what you do. And I think I kicked the first goal.
Yeah, you did.
On him. And I was just like, this is the best thing. I think I pointed straight at him. Like, this is the best. So I just built with it all. And then we won. And then, I think he's a good fella, Riley O'Brien, but I thank him that he did that. But then I gave him the phone. And it actually caused a bit of problems because Adelaide's major sponsor is Optus. So him receiving a phone, Telstra retweeting it, me sharing it. I think he shared it as well at some point. Like not thinking. Dumb. Us Ruckman. I think he's smart though. He's one of the smart ones. But yeah, it just caused mayhem in their camp as well because of sponsorship and stuff.
But no one knew it was going to happen. Like this is like straight after the game, and suddenly you produce. It was like in your jocks, like producing.
I think Kate Orm had it. I think our media lady Kate Orm had it.
Yeah.
So Thumper's idea. I think he made a little video. I don't know if you've seen that video of it's probably a bad one, but there's like all these like 6 African guys holding a coffin, like dancing.
Yeah.
I did that because what actually built on the whole thing as well was at those years I was getting filmed. I was doing an Amazon documentary, so I had a full film crew following me everywhere. I was mic'd up everywhere, so they loved it as well. They're like, "Yes, let's play on this even more. Like, this is the best thing ever." So they were filming Rory Sloane at Adelaide. So we're getting live feeds, or like when you go back and watch the doco, there's stuff from their camp and him like worried about it, and there's me talking in the gym at Royal Pines about it. It was a perfect thing.
And you were kind of getting the crossover from it.
Bit of because they both camera crews are talking back and forth, so it was good. But then a lot of my teammates were like, "Where's my phone? Like, I just give me a free phone." Like,
were you going to give it to him if you lost?
No way. I would have been selling that thing, I reckon. Yeah, I don't know. No, I was making sure we won. We won.
Yeah, that's good.
Another couple of little ones, then we're going to wrap this up and get to some fan questions and finish things off. I remember the day that you came in and you weren't, I've never really seen you that angry, to be honest, other than when you put Zach Merritt into the 4th tier of the that was hilarious. But the anger isn't something you hold off the field, but you were pretty worked up about this. You come in and you're wearing black Nike tights, which you've been wearing.
Yeah.
So a memo had come in from someone, AFL, someone else. Nick, you need to wear skin-coloured tights.
Yeah.
And you were wearing black tights.
I'd always wear them, yeah.
And skin-coloured was like my skin colour.
Yeah, like the tan, like the beige ones.
Yeah.
And you were like, sorry, would you like me to put tan ones on or would you like me to put black ones on?
Yeah, the club were getting fined. They were fining the club every week that I wouldn't wear them.
Really?
So, yeah. And they got to the point where the club were like, mate, we're not paying this fine from the AFL. Like, so like you're going to have to just wear some jocks, mate. Like do something. And I'm like, I just got real stubborn. I started calling out racism, going, this is not my skin colour. And they ended up changing the rule where it was like, yeah, so like if a guy's like Majak Dor or Lear, they can come thank me now. I'm like, you know what? Because I was just like, I just didn't make sense. And I think it was just written up, not thinking about every single player. But yeah, I copped it from the AFL for many weeks because it was just like, I was just like, why are we getting told off for wearing this? Like you can't even see it. I said it stands out more if I wore the beige colour ones. But yeah, that was wild. That were different times. Yeah. Imagine them trying to do that now. They'd probably lose their job.
I was thinking about the attention you copped. I just had some notes here, but did anyone ever overstep the line? Did you ever have
attention-wise outside of?
Yeah. Or like, did you have weird
weird ones? There'd be people trying to like, get you to sign their boobs at a kids under 10 clinic or something at Aquinas College, like things like that. Where you just like, there's 1,000 kids here, like stupid things like that. There's that. There's like. I think sports betting has ruined the game a bit, like because I remember there was a guy abused the crap out of me at an airport lounge, at a Virgin lounge I think it was a Melbourne one. After we'd lost, I was meant to have 35 hitouts, but I only had 20 or so. He lost it at me, and I was just like, people really lose a lot of money if they don't. Which I get, last leg of the multi doesn't get up. So those encounters are always tough ones, trying to deal with it. And social media, like my socials, I'd always get abused. Like, but I think the crowd's normally pretty good. I used to get a lot of racial sort of stuff early days.
Did you?
They got better. Yeah, I used to cop that a fair bit. Stapes actually used to look after a lot of that. I'd have one every sort of 3 weeks or so away, like every 3 or 4 weeks. Like there'd always be someone just saying it. My inbox was always the worst. Like I'd always caught racial abuse.
Is that right?
Yeah. So I'd constantly filter on my Instagram or, Twitter or whatever it was, Facebook, like, because people would always just write just stuff for no reason. And it got to the point where people were doing it on fake accounts, but then they just started doing it on their own. Like they just didn't care.
That always blows my mind when like,
so I had a
there's
few
like
meetings,
a club that finds out and they lose their membership. Like how How like thick of a person can you
Yeah,
be?
they are there. There's a
To
thing.
do that. Obviously, to actually send that sort of message anyway. But look, for your own account and stuff, it's just.
I had a few messages. I've had a few where I've had to go and actually meet up with them, like through the AFL. They'd run like a mediation thing, and you'd all sit in there and talk it over.
Well, with just someone that's sending a message.
Yeah, I had one guy do it in Melbourne. I had to go and meet with him in the States.
Like with threats and
detectives
stuff.
and that. Yeah, I get detectives and that here in Perth. Like I used to get these young guys. They all would have been. It's probably 18 at the time. He used to ring me on an away trip at it'd be like 2 a.m. in Melbourne, so probably like 11 o'clock in Perth, and just abuse me like the most racial stuff ever on a private number, like every single away trip. Anyway, I gave my phone to Stapes at the time, and I said, he goes, leave it with me. I don't know how he has these connections, but he gave it to his little detective mates. Within the 2 days, they found out who these guys were with the private block number. Had them at the footy club with their parents. They were both, parents are crying. Mum's like so disappointed. They'd got my number off somewhere, and they'd been just ringing it because they were just bored, like getting drunk every week.
Tail between the legs type operation.
Yeah.
With you standing in front
with me
of them
standing there. And I was so small now. I was like, these guys don't even swear. Like, what are you, how are you guys doing this? And I half wanted to just close the door and just leave me in there with them. Like, I was like, the amount of sleepless nights I'd have. Because I would never put my phone on silent back then because I was always in fear of missing a team meeting.
Yeah.
Trying to rewind just so you get a bit of context. Whoosh's rules. We used to have this red card system back when we started, which I think they should bring back. But if you were late to a meeting, you could be 2 minutes late. They'd lock the door, but then you'd have to go do red card sessions at the beach. So we'd be at and every time it would go back 10 minutes or so. So if it was a 6 a.m. City Beach session, the next time, if Scully was late to the next meeting, it'd be 5:50 the next morning.
For everyone.
So, and the whole team comes. So you're a young guy, 18-year-old, and you stuff up.
You're the reason.
And you got guys with kids and that going, you're the reason I'm out of bed. My missus hates me because I'm not helping out with the kids at this time in the morning like this. So I was always in fear of that. So I'd never put my phone on silent because I was always like, I need to not sleep in. But yeah, they got me for a while, but we got on top of
it. 2 questions and then we're done. And then a couple of fan questions. Number 1, retired, finished footy. How do you look back on your career?
Yeah, I'm happy. I think I got a lot out of it. Ended up playing over 200 games and, got to some great heights as well. So never really any regrets. There's things I wish I accomplished and didn't get to do, but look back to where I started and what I was doing before playing footy, I go, it's easy for me to go, I wish I did this and that, but half the guys I grew up with would have killed to have the career I did. So, I'm happy with it. I'm pleased.
Life after footy, talk to me about Alta.
Yeah, so I got a sparkling, a functional soda brand with a former teammate in Jack Redden. So
why have you done that? I mean, it's a great idea.
Redo was alcoholic, so we had to get a sparkling drink to get him off it.
I only think you've done wrong partnering with Redo. Everything else is great about it.
We just saw a gap in the market. One of our friends, Das, is in that game where he sells, alcohol and non-alcoholic products from Sydney, all over the world. So he was like, there's a void in the market here, and this generation aren't drinking as much anymore, and they're very health conscious, and they look at the back of the can now more than ever. So, we thought we'd formulate that and sort of build a business plan on how to get distribution out to everywhere and anywhere, and it's growing pretty quick. It's actually been really good. So,
I'd love to have a can.
We've been asking.
Thanks, mate.
I swear there was a heap in here.
There was. We drank them in about 5 seconds. They're great.
I'm going to come back and drop some off to you.
You got, they're going into venues now. You're across 7-Elevens.
All the 7-Elevens, a lot of the pubs, the Australian Venues Co.
Supermarkets.
Yeah, all the IGA groups and that. So most independents around the whole country are doing it as well. So it's it's growing. In stadiums, like Optus Stadium has it. Trying to get the other ones around the country as well at the moment. So
unreal.
It is good.
It's good. It's good on its own. It's a good mixer as well for those that want to mix it.
Are you looking to sponsor a podcast at all?
Yeah, if you guys are keen, get on board.
No, you get on board.
We're not giving you anything.
No. Duggo has been asking me actually for his 4-wheel drive stuff. But I don't know if the 4-wheel drive drinker's actually going to be drinking a little slimline sparkling can. Maybe they are.
Well, I guess you won't know until you sponsor a podcast.
That's it. We will. No, we should. We will.
Don't knock it in.
We will.
Mate,
Wait, let's give me the right one though. I don't know what you.
We'll give you the right part.
We'll make a segment for him.
Yeah, absolutely.
Alternate reality. I don't know.
Yeah,
All right, social media. We're whipping through these. We're about to go live for 5 hours on YouTube. It's going to be the best time ever on a public holiday. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.
We are done asking our questions. This is time for social media. That's right. Social media still lives. You remember?
I wasn't sure if it was.
That still lives. This is by the fans for you. A couple of hard hitters. Start with Milos.
So this is from Milos_Nikolic. Any young Fijian draft prospects that you're impressed with?
Coming through the ranks now.
Yeah. Are there any guys to look out for?
There's a couple. There's a AFL Fiji crew running around in Melbourne at the moment that have a few, but none I could just say they're going to be the next me. They're all a lot smaller than me, but no, there's a couple coming through the ranks, even through the Nic Naitanui Academy. There's a few boys there of different ethnicities that are sort of coming through the NGA.
BJ Harris.
Do you remember that kick in the street competition in Karratha with my brother that he won on the radio very early days?
I do actually, yeah. Man, I swear West Coast used to make us do some real out there things. I've been a show and tell at someone's school at John 23rd. I've done like a family dinner with someone.
With the show and
the club used to sell us off. We used to get sold off. Maybe it was just me.
Family dinner.
Yeah, I done a family dinner.
What did you just roll in?
And there was like this big Italian family having dinner, and it was in Beaconsfield.
You just rolled in for
near
a fee.
Casuarina prison. I just always remember that. I remember in my maps, and I'm like, why am I here?
What? So you just sit down and eat dinner with
We used to have a gala auction, and they used to sell. Remember the gala auctions at West Coast? They used to sell products, but sell players. And so one of those kick the kicks. They class it as radio, but that was our community camp. That it was like go for a fishing trip with Mark LaCroix. That's what it was.
Have a family dinner with you.
Yeah,
and you're like, sweet, I'm going to eat pasta with some random Italian family.
Yeah,
okay.
But I do remember that. So hi to you.
Garbo 543.
Why do most ruckmen start so far back at the boundary throw-ins and continually miss getting to the ball?
I don't like it. It's one of my pet peeves.
Is that right?
I hate it. I hate it so much, and I've been trying to educate some of our ruckmen at West Coast this past few weeks about it.
Sprinting towards the throw-in.
It's dumb. I was like, it's just science. It's like you're running full speed this way, the ball's getting thrown in this way, and then you're trying to have soft hands. It doesn't work.
So what would you rather?
I reckon starting closer, use your body to hold off someone, and then you're trying to wrestle someone who's 100 kilos, 200 centimeters. Like, I think I always say to the guys without giving away too much is to start in closer, body them, and then get that separation. Then that last minute, you got no one touching you, and then you can use your wrists. You can whichever way you want, but you have to understand the game. You need to know what angle the ball's getting thrown in at what part of the ground. You need to know that's only going 18 meters. Like some ruckmen don't know these things, which baffles me. I'm like, you can save yourself so much if you learn the rules of the game.
They're ruckmen.
But I just think even the midfielders should know that. Like I see midfielders standing there as well, and these ruckmen are running full speed at them, and all of a sudden they're getting bowled over or they're like not in the spot. I'm like, if you stand at this 18-meter point, the ball is going to drop here. So either ruckmen are getting there or you're going to be the first one there. Like, I don't know.
Jared Healy used to roll out like the flip, the flop, the over the top, all this stuff. How much time did you work on your hits? And I think I remember you saying like most of the time you could get called in the air. Like
I always did. I always wanted to be adaptable. So that was my biggest thing. So Coxie probably instilled the rubbish spins, which I still think is one of the most powerful things you can do. So for those who don't know, you always used to see us ruckmen stand there with the rubbish bins around us, and we just tap, and you do like 1,000 odd taps, just different ways of positioning your hand. So you can use left hand, right hand, you can hit it hard, you hit it soft, you can use two fingers. Like I just felt if you didn't have that touch, you couldn't do that, which some guys can't. It's like playing volleyball with ruckmen. It's like they're just slamming it down because, like I said, you're physically like wrestling and fighting a guy and they expect to have these little snowflake hits. So I'm like, if you can drop it in that little vicinity by doing that, you need to be able to do it. But I spent a lot of time with it and got to the point where I couldn't do too many centre bounces on the ground. And I think it was when Pikey was our midfield coach. When Tom Pike was actually coaching at West Coast, he had to drive me and a few others used to go to Challenge Stadium or HBF Park, whatever it's called now, stadium, and go to the gymnast area, the sprung floors in there. So I'd go to either the Ninja Academy with Anthony Jones or go to the sprung floors out at Challenge, and I'd have like little 5-6-year-old gymnasts doing their thing, and then there's me, this big tall 7-foot black guy jumping around trying to tap a ball and jump on these trampolines, because I'd always want to learn how to, when you're up there, what can you see? Like not just go up there and just hit it, like see and I want boys to be chaotic and move around because on game day you can slow it down in your head. You can just.
But that was unique to you. Most percentage of ruckmen would be like, oh, I'm going to hit this left hip and I'm going to do my best.
Yeah,
but you would jump up and be in the air and Luke Shuey's going.
Well, that's the thing. I think I always work alongside Shuey a fair bit, so I'd always take him. If I'm going to go do those things at the thing with Pikey, I'm taking Shuey with me because I reckon, as much as I don't like saying it, those guys make you look 10 times better than what you actually are. Like half the time I'm doing that and I can say, oh yeah, I've seen off the back corner and flicked it that way and hit it to a 2.5 or whatever, and it's like. No. He's just he's seen it and he's gone. Oh, Nick's stuck. He's going to hit it there, and he's taken off. Had 3 bounces, hit JK on full forward, and I'm going. Yeah, it's easy, but I had no idea.
Would you like to have rucked to Harley?
Yep.
He would have been.
I reckon he would have been amazing. Yeah. Some guys like when you like being able to ruck to like the Currys of the world.
Yeah. Judd.
Yeah, Judd. Like Pritis, like those guys. Like even the other guys at other teams. I'm like, oh man, if I got to ruck to you. This would be unstoppable.
Brownlows.
Yeah. Like some of these guys, Coxie reckons he's won a few Brownlows because he's won Cuzzy and Juddy a few. But they're a long-winded answer to that one. But yeah,
that's good.
Saxon Sounders.
Did you ever fly economy with West Coast?
Yeah, my first.
How'd you fit?
Couple of years. Exit rows though. Exit rows. No, there was always
exit rows.
What was it? It was height and seniority has always been the thing. It was always seniority at West Coast early days. Like Daniel Kerr had a business class seat.
Yeah, correct.
And Wirra.
Yeah, correct.
And Wirra. So the old guys. I don't know if you ever got on early days. Nah.
I was always on like it was seniority, and then as soon as I got old enough, they then like moved it to like height, and I was always on the
middle, like half.
Trying to negotiate to self.
You'd be on the way home.
Yeah,
like the old guys on the way home got it, but not on the way over. But it would always be height. But it took me a few years. It took me maybe 4 or 5 years before I got to sit business. But most of the time I was in the back. It's more fun down the back. You get to play cards and do this and yeah.
Last 2, Footscray boy.
Did you ever consider cutting your hair during your footy career?
Yeah, many times. Yeah.
Did you?
Yeah. I always wanted to, but just never did.
Is that right?
I started selling wigs. I think they tried to make me keep it.
You could have made a fair bit of money, either personally or for charity, by chopping that off.
Yeah, I've been offered a few times from charities. I actually did telethon one year, and someone offered me. I really didn't want to cut it, and someone offered I think it was 20 or 30 grand to cut it on stage, and I was like,
that's hard to
and I started
down.
getting booed as well.
Yeah, it's like for charity, man. Come on.
Yeah. I know. I was with Chris Summers as well when it happened, and I remember saying to her, I was like, "This is embarrassing." Anyway, I was so angry at Basil, but I ended up getting someone called in and was like, I'll double it to keep it.
Oh,
and
nice.
I was like, you rockstar. I'll come have dinner at your house every day.
Yeah. Did you have to, was there one time where he copped a fine and it was cut your hair or pay a fine or something? Fines master for you? Like were you?
Oh yeah, that's one of the things on there. I think all the time for most.
You would have been paying.
I'm paying it every single time.
Yeah, you weren't doing any dares or anything.
I'm not cutting my hair for a dare. I'm not going to do it for a 20 grand charity. You think I'm going to do it for $200? Spin the wheel at a footy club? No way.
That'd be brilliant. You're rocking up, mate. Just shaved head. No one would recognise you, mate. Last
fines
one.
Master. There you go.
Yeah, from the Eggman. How does Nic Naitanui like his eggs?
How do I like my eggs?
Yeah,
poached.
Okay.
Nice.
Yeah, interesting. How do you guys like yours? I don't know.
That's how we finish most episodes, mate.
63-degree egg.
I don't know what that is.
Wow.
Slow cooked egg.
I'm all over the place. I'm scrambled, fried, sunny side up sometimes, like double fried. I don't know. Like I'm all over the place.
Hard boiled.
Mate, we're done.
Thank you so much.
No, thank you. That's good.
Thank you for making the time for us, mate.
It's all right. No worries.
Great to hear you chat. Make sure you go and pick up an altar out there in amongst the wilderness if you're listening along. You can follow us on BackChat _, all of our stuff at backchatstudios.com.au, backchatpodcast.com.au specifically here. Powered by Paywise in 2025, TABtouch, ID Athletic, Whippersnapper Whisky, Mumba Digital, Sheltered Brewing Co., Leaderville Precinct, and On One Services, bringing you the podcast. That's right.
Could be Alta too.
More sponsors than you can imagine. And soon to be Alta, non-alcoholic drinks. Major partners here at BackChat. Nic Naitanui, thank you very much.
Thank you guys. Appreciate it.